Which is the best compact phone in 2025? While most reviewers focus on the big flagship phones, I personally much prefer carrying a compact phone. And in 2025, there are three small phones that stand out: the Galaxy S25, the iPhone 16 Pro, and the Pixel 9 Pro. I've used all of them for a while, and after running battery tests and capturing lots of photos and videos on all three, let's see which is the best one. Starting with the display, you have a 6.2-inch screen on the Galaxy and a 6.3-inch screen on both the iPhone and the Pixel. This is a very small difference, but it is there. All of these phones have OLED screens with 120Hz refresh rate, no difference, but the Galaxy has 1080p resolution, while the iPhone and the Pixel are a bit sharper than that, so that's one slight advantage. They also differ by brightness. We measured the maximum brightness using a picture with 20% white in it, which is a more realistic measure than the inflated numbers phone makers give you. So on our test, the Pixel 9 Pro scores 2655 nits, which is a bit higher than the Galaxy and much higher than the iPhone. So the Pixel is a bit easier to use outdoors. But the minimum brightness on the Pixel does not drop enough. It can only go down to 2 nits, which if you use your phone in bed at night is a bit too bright. The Galaxy and the iPhone both drop below 1 nit, which is much better. Overall, I would say that display quality between these three phones is mostly a draw. But what about the design and size? Here there is one clear winner for me. While the iPhone and the Pixel are relatively compact compared to bigger phones, the Galaxy stands out even more. With a weight of 5.7 ounces, it's more than an ounce lighter than the 7-ounce iPhone and Pixel. The Galaxy is also thinner and smaller, both a bit shorter and narrow, so if you want a truly compact and lightweight phone, the Samsung S25 is clearly the one to go. Easy win for the Galaxy here. Okay, a small size is great, but what about battery life? Well, actually the iPhone has the smallest battery among these three, with a capacity of around 3600 mAh. Then you have the Galaxy with a 4000 mAh battery, and finally the Pixel with a 4700 mAh cell, much bigger than the others. But if we've learned one thing from years of testing phones, it is that battery size alone doesn't always tell the full story. So we ran our 3 in-house battery tests and we saw a few surprises. The Galaxy scored nearly 18 hours and a half of non-stop browsing. It actually beat the Pixel, which had 17 hours, and the iPhone, which got 16 hours and a half. But then, as is typical for Samsung, when streaming YouTube videos, the Galaxy got the worst score, lasting just 8 hours, while the iPhone got half an hour longer and the Pixel finished first with more than 10 hours. As you can see, the results are kind of mixed, depending on your usage, but overall we estimate a total use time of 6 hours and 35 minutes on the iPhone, 6 hours and 53 minutes on the Pixel, and the Galaxy actually comes on top with 7 hours and 6 minutes. As for charging speeds, all are very similar and charge at a rate of around 25 watts. A full charge takes about 1 hour and 20 minutes on the Pixel and the Galaxy, while the iPhone takes a bit longer, around 1 hour and 35 minutes. All three phones also support wireless charging, with the iPhone having the fastest 25-watt charging speed, but only if you use Apple's second generation MagSafe puck, while the Pixel supports 21-watt wireless charging and the Galaxy only supports 15 watts. Alright, battery life and charging seem to be overall slightly better on the Galaxy and the Pixel, but what about, the actual performance? Well, in daily use, I find the iPhone and the Pixel work very smoothly, with beautiful animations and no stutter at all, while I still feel that the Galaxy is not nearly as smooth, and that is because of the heavy One UI skin. And sure, One UI has improved over the years, but little things like the fluidity of the animations just don't feel as smooth. The Galaxy has one other weakness too: software updates. While Samsung commits to 7 years of OS updates on paper, we've seen these updates take months to arrive. While with the iPhone and the Pixel, you get them the moment the company releases them on day one. That is a big difference. In terms of pure numbers though, the Galaxy is actually ahead of the pack, and that shows how the experience and the chip inside the phone can look quite different. On the Geekbench test, the Galaxy scores a bit higher than the iPhone, and the only clear loser is the Pixel with its subpar tensor chip. And same story for gaming. The Galaxy beats the iPhone by a slight margin, but both phones are way ahead of the Pixel for heavy-duty gaming. Alright, we got to the interesting part. So what about the cameras? All of these phones have 3 cameras on their back. The main one, the ultra-wide one, and the telephoto lens. For the main camera, the iPhone and the Pixel use bigger sensors, while the Galaxy features a smaller sensor than these two, so it's a bit behind. And it's a similar story with the telephoto sensor. The Pixel has the biggest one, followed by a slightly smaller one on the iPhone, and an even smaller one on the Galaxy. Also, the iPhone and Pixel have a 5x zoom lens, while the Galaxy has 3 times zoom. But let's take a look at the actual photos rather than dwell on the technicalities. First, the zoom quality. At 10 times zoom, you can see that the Galaxy is just not as capable as the other two, as just it lacks the detail. The iPhone and the Pixel put up a fight, but when you look closer, you can see a lot more noise on the iPhone photos. So ultimately, the zoom photos on the Pixel look cleaner and the most detailed, so it's the winner. It's much closer when we look at the main camera though. As you can see, images look mostly similar, all have a good amount of detail. The iPhone usually goes with a bit more contrast, which is interesting, and I do think that when you look closer, the Pixel has the cleanest detail. I would overall call this one a draw. If you want my personal favorite, I just like the Pixel look, man. There is something about that dynamic range and lack of over-sharpening that I find really appealing. Now, next, looking at the ultra-wide photos, I think the Pixel definitely stands out. First because of its dynamic range and super clean look, and the other two occasionally blow the highlights a bit, and especially the iPhone is clearly struggling with detail. That will hopefully improve in the iPhone 17 Pro, but right now it's just not on par. Between the Pixel and the Galaxy, I see a bit more over-sharpening on the Galaxy, while the Pixel has cleaner detail, so I would go with the Pixel. And as for the selfies, I like the option to go much wider with the Pixel. You don't have that on the other phones, but I'm not a fan of the muted colors and the slight color tint. So just based on colors, I would go with either the iPhone or the Galaxy. The Samsung phone has these more saturated and brighter colors, while the iPhone here actually strikes the golden middle, so I would pick it as my favorite and the most realistic one. Now, such are the days we also have to talk about AI, and the iPhone really struggles here. The Galaxy and the Pixel have Gemini built in, which is so far ahead of Siri, and they also have useful tools like Circle to search. The Galaxy also has a few tricks up its sleeve, like website summaries in the browser, which I find very useful. And both the Galaxy and the Pixel do a much better job cleaning up your images with AI. Alright, that's about the photos, but when it comes to video, it's still a win for the iPhone. I also find video looking a bit strange on the Pixel. The colors are a bit messed up and there is this weird brightening of faces which can look super strange. This is a selfie video on the iPhone 16 Pro. How does it look? And then we have the prices. You can often find the Galaxy and the Pixel at big discounts, so you can buy them for around $600 to $700 if you wait for a good deal, especially the Galaxy, which also starts at a lower $800 price. The iPhone rarely gets discounted much, and you usually have to pay the full $1,000 for it. Alright, so which one is it? Which one is the best compact phone of 2025? Well, first, the Galaxy wins it for its sheer small size and lightweight, the great price, and it's the best in benchmarks. Plus the camera is definitely good enough, apart from the long-range zooms. But on the list of cons are the slow pace of updates, and I just don't find it as smooth and enjoyable in daily use. Next we have the Pixel. It has the smooth moves, the fast updates, and for photos I would personally go for the Pixel most of the time. But then on the list of cons is the slow tensor chip, which is not as good for gamers and power users. Finally, we have the iPhone. It has iOS and it runs super smoothly, but it is far behind in AI and its battery life could be better. So which of these three would you choose and why? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you in the next one.